You're watching Global Trade This Week with Pete Mento and Doug Draper.
Welcome to another exciting episode of Global Trade This Week. I'm Pete Mento, TradeGeek podcast, Trade School. I mean, come on, by now, all of my attempts at shameless self-promotion. You're probably wondering where my co-host Doug Draper is. I could give you all kinds of excellent excuses. I could say that he has a parole hearing. I could tell you that he's off, maybe getting a wild haircut, finally getting those long locks that he had hoped for that rock star look. But the reality is, folks, he has a family vacation that he was excited to be attending this week. And he left me all on my own to finally star in my own episode this week. And I cannot tell you enough how excited I am to finally anchor, not co-anchor, but anchor this week's edition by myself, which means it will probably be a disaster because, as we all know, Doug really is the glue that keeps this show together. So as excited as I am, I'm excited. I'll be excited, even more excited to have him back next week because the show's just not the same without him. So Doug, I know you'll be watching and I hope you know that we all miss you and we can't wait to have you back next week. All joking aside, hope you enjoyed your vacation, stranding me here on my own, rather selfish of you. Been an exciting week. I've got two great topics this week. Of course, those of you who are watching live know that today we found out that the Ever Given was floated off of the bank and that we're going to be seeing the Suez Canal, see traffic going through it again, which is wonderful. I got a little mouthy on LinkedIn today saying that some of the smugness on social media that people are what's the word I'm looking for, displaying, talking about, how anybody probably should have been able to get through that canal, folks, until you've been on the bridge of a ship, and trust me, it's very hard work. You should probably refrain from talking any smack about what went down on that ship. Being at the wheel of a vessel that size, of any size, and that amount of sail area, what goes on, sandstorms and all the rest of it, it is not an easy task. So until we know all the details, let's reserve some judgment. And I'm very happy that it was taken care of. Hats off to the multinational group that did all the work there. And, let's hope that we can get trade moving again. But anyway, on to my first topic on Global Trade This Week with Pete Mento and Doug Draper, brought to you by Cap Logistics. It's sugar. Sugar. Honey, honey, you are my candy girl, and you got me wanting you. Key, you're probably back in that control room right now saying, what is he singing? That song is so old, I'm wondering if your grandparents, you'd have to go to your grandparents probably to get somebody who knows that song. Sugar. Americans, you're probably not aware of this unless you're a true trade geek, but sugar is a very expensive commodity here in the United States. It's probably 10 times more expensive in the U.S. than any other country in the world. And a big reason for that is because most nations heavily subsidize its production and export. Here in the U.S., on the other hand, we don't really put a lot of money into its subsidy. What we'll do is give interest-bearing loans to farmers who do produce it. On the other hand, we give a lot of agricultural help to people who are creating corn, which will eventually, of course, go into high fructose corn syrup. Now, because of that, and because of what we believe are very unfair trade practices in countries that do produce a great deal of sugar, we have massive quotas on the importation of sugar, and it is a highly, highly contested product that comes into America. We make it very painful for foreign countries to import sugar into America. And honestly, with good reason, they do not make it a very fair product to import into the United States. So the USTR, and we'll be talking about her in both of my segments today, has said vocally that this is one particular area that she will be putting some pressure on the World Trade Organization to address. We've never really, for years now, decided that we were going to take a stance on this and stand up to sugar producing countries, as it was seen as something that we could manage from a food security standpoint with high fructose corn syrup. But because of America's recent obsession with trying to wean ourselves off of that particular commodity in many instances, and to look at sugar as I guess, a more healthy alternative, I don't know, we're going to be focusing on that. And anytime the United States and our combined heft as a market, and also our strength and power as a trade negotiator, decides to go after a commodity with full force, you can expect that we're going to cause a stir. Now, this also is added to the fact that it is such a universal commodity. Now, America does import a great deal of sugar, but not as much as you would imagine. Many other nations don't use as much high fructose corn syrup, and they do import a great deal of it. If the U.S. were to start importing more and more sugar, it would actually cause significant increase to its price around the world, and could change consumption of it, and probably change the supply and demand of it, and could have ramifications about how it's consumed and therefore how it's priced around the world. This will be a fascinating topic for us to watch through the course of the next few years, as Ms. Tai really gets her eyes on it and her arms around it. Now, this is the part of the show where I would look over at Doug and I would say, Doug, what do you think about it? And I don't know what Doug would say. So this is going to be like a Star Trek episode. I don't know if you guys remember Evil Kirk, but there was like Captain Kirk, and then there was like Evil Captain Kirk and Evil Spock. And the only difference was that they had goatees. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to be Evil Pete, and I'm going to tell you how I disagree with what I just said. All right. This is why my girlfriend says dating me is hard, because I can probably just as easily take either side of this argument. But why this is just as problematic is we are a nation that does not have a great deal of lands that are useful for the production of sugar. So why do we care? Frankly, why do we care so much about this? It is not a product that we are easily able to produce. We have places in Florida, certainly parts of Alabama, Hawaii is another place that we are able to manufacture sugar, but we don't have a large portion of America's landscape that sugar production is easy to do. What we do have the ability to produce a tremendous amount of is corn. Boy, can this country make corn. So wouldn't it make sense for us to push people towards corn production into higher fructose corn syrup, which can be used to sweeten everything? Now, as you know, I've been on a weight loss kick for quite some time. I've lost nearly 80 pounds since the beginning of January. And I can tell you that someone who tries to avoid corn syrup, it is in practically everything that we see here, because it is so easy to create and put into everything. If you're trying to avoid sweeteners, you'll find that sugar is not necessarily in its rawest form in everything that you are going to look at, but it is in a lot of things, just regular sugar. So clearly we can get our hands on it, and it's not trashing the cost of the things that we're trying to buy. So what is the big push to make things less expensive that you put sugar in? Is this really something that we should be putting all of our time and effort in when there are so many other problems with international trade? Why is sugar being so pushed apart upon? Well, that's easy. It is because sugar has a massive lobby behind it with some very powerful people who have a tremendous amount of money, and it is a highly politically charged action. So is it so much that we are trying to make something more inexpensive for American consumers, or is it because this is a highly politically charged topic? I don't know, Pete, but I think that it's more about politics than it is about consumers. So there you go. Man, that is confusing, having to do both sides of the topic. It is a lot easier when Doug is here, but that's topic number one. So I guess that means that because I only have two topics, that leads us to halftime of the Global Trade This Week show, brought to you by Cap Logistics. For those of you who would like to learn more about Cap Logistics, I would say, first of all, go to their website, for Cap Logistics, where not only is the content for Global Trade This Week, all of our past shows there, but you can, also visit Doug's podcast and a lot of other great content. There are a number of people who work for Cap Logistics who do podcasts and also other video there. They churn out a tremendous amount of wonderful content and a lot about the services that they provide. I don't know of too many other companies that would be doing as much to try to educate you about what's going on. So please do check out Cap Logistics. Also follow them on LinkedIn for more information and more timely information and to learn more about what they're up to. And that brings us to topic number 2. Sticking with our wonderful USTR, she came right out. And I mean, you want to talk about, this is something I actually love about her. She came right out and said that we are not going to be removing the Chinese 301 tariffs anytime soon. And it was not a diplomatic hedging of bets. It was not, some adorable, I don't know, maybe we'll keep the tariffs on China, maybe we won't, time will tell. No, it was hey, listen, it's important when you're negotiating something that you do everything you can to maintain leverage over the people you're negotiating with. So it'd be kind of bad, wouldn't it? I mean, it would be ill-advised not to have fantastic leverage on the people that you're negotiating with when you have so much leverage. So we're going to be keeping these tariffs on China while we continue to negotiate. And she made it very clear that she would like to get back to the negotiating table as quickly as possible. And if China would like to see these tariffs go away, the best possible thing that they could do would be to get back to the negotiating table to talk about the things that still remain at issue between ourselves and what is now apparently our single largest trading partner. And those things are still the systematic, well-funded, centralized theft of American intellectual property by the Chinese, funded by their government, the continued use of joint ventures even after they said they would stop doing it, how they have not continued to buy large swaths of American agriculture products. They bought more, but not as much as they said they would do. The pegging of the Chinese RMB to the US dollar, which again, although technically it's not happening, it is, and how we believe that their trade practices are not in line with the many different ways that they have promised both the WTO, the US, and other international organizations. Now, China also has a number of problems with the US as well, and they would like to come back to the trading table with us and negotiate those in kind. So, the good news is it looks like we're going to get back to negotiating. The bad news is these tariffs are going to stay in place for some time. All right. Well, now I'll do a bit of evil Pete for this tariff issue here. I'll flip my hat around. So evil Pete, when it comes to these Chinese tariffs, is going to say the following. At some point, we need to realize that these tariffs are doing absolutely awful damage to the American consumer who ultimately pays them. And we don't really have any proof that it's brought any business back to American manufacturers. What it's really doing is raising the cost of manufacturing in America, because a lot of these tariffs were paid on parts, accessories, and materials that were used for production. I mean, at this point, shouldn't we consider at least maybe doing a nice little gesture to China and saying, come back to the table to have a conversation with us? I mean, it's been a long, long time, and haven't we suffered enough? These inflationary measures are going to drive American businesses crazy. Thank you all for joining us on Global Trade this week. Next week, Doug will be back, and so will I, and we'll see you then.